In the final years of the Ottoman Empire, a dynasty emerged from the shadows to take control and transform the destiny of Asia. This family, little known in the West today, would become the center of one of the most powerful and controversial empires in history. I'm talking about the Sassoon Dynasty, nicknamed the Rothschilds of the East, whose commercial tentacles extended from Bombay to Shanghai via London and Hong Kong. Few know that the patriarch of this family, David Sassoon, arrived in India as an Iraqi Jewish immigrant in the 1830s, escaping persecution in Baghdad. Their story is perhaps the most astonishing tale of commercial conquest in 19th century history. David Sassoon, starting from nothing, managed to build an empire that spanned the entire Asian trade, transforming not only the economic landscape but also politics and society. But what truly made the Sassoon family stand out was how they built their fortune through the opium trade. The intricate trade network woven by the Sassoons not only included goods such as textiles and spices, but, as historical sources mention, opium played a crucial role. This economic and social scourge fueled the dynasty's great fortunes. The Sassoon Empire expanded under the protection of British military might, whose gunboats secured control over China's ports in the First Opium War, a conflict that forced China to open its doors to foreign trade. The family, in addition to being important merchants, acted as architects of empires, influencing colonial policies in India, China, and the Far East, but also contributing to the emergence of modernity in these regions in their own ways. While they built synagogues in Bombay, their commercial activities went hand in hand with the exploitation of entire communities. Indian peasants were forced to cultivate opium poppies instead of food crops, while Chinese communities lived under the yoke of opium addiction. David Sassoon, born in Baghdad in the year 1792, had come to India fleeing persecution. As treasurer to the Pasha of Baghdad, his family had strong ties to the Ottoman nobility and a heritage of religious power that allowed them access to high political circles. David Sassoon's family had a dual identity, a blend of commerce with religious knowledge, a balance between the secular and the sacred, which allowed them to navigate easily between the Western and Eastern worlds. Following the death of his first wife, Hannah Joseph, in 1826, and his subsequent marriage to Flora Haim, David cemented his legacy with 10 children. Each contributed to building the empire, which extended to Hong Kong, Shanghai, and Singapore, where the Sassoons created a vast opium trading system that made them a central element of the British Empire. However, the most striking aspect of this story is the contrast between the humanitarian ideals David preached and the brutal reality of his business dealings. While he built hospitals, schools, and synagogues, the money to fund these efforts came from the suffering and addiction of thousands of people whose misery fueled the Sassoon family's wealth. As one of the largest exporters of opium to China, their fortune was based on the destruction of entire communities in a cycle of exploitation financed by imperial violence. As the British Empire expanded throughout Asia, the Sassoon family benefited greatly, becoming connected to British colonial interests that maintained the opium, textile, and raw material trade on the Asian continent. The Sassoon ships, protected by the British fleet, carried not only legitimate cargo, but also the opium that accounted for the bulk of their profits. Upon David Sassoon's death in 1864, his empire was inherited by his sons, Albert and Elias Sassoon, who continued their father's legacy, expanding it even further. Albert Sassoon, known for his keen business acumen, not only maintained the opium trade, but also diversified the family business into the textile industry, banking, and infrastructure construction. Meanwhile, Elias, the bolder brother, ventured into China, where he strengthened the trade network his father had begun. As the Sassoon Empire expanded, the brothers, born in Baghdad but educated in Bombay, became the rulers of the colonial trade. As the Second Opium War forced China to open even more ports, the Sassoon trading houses established themselves as the most powerful in the region. Each trading port became a platform for further exploiting the riches of Asia, while the family enjoyed the luxuries of Europe. But the family's achievements were not without criticism. The Sassoons faced growing opposition from the Chinese nationalist movement, which viewed growing foreign influence and the opium trade as intolerable exploitation. However, the family responded with skillful management of its assets, protecting its interests and expanding its influence as Europe and Asia plunged into a century of profound social and political change. By the year 1890, when the family had already reached the height of its power, Albert Sassoon was honored by Queen Victoria with the title of baronet, a reflection of his influence not only in commerce but also in British society. Despite their connections to imperial power, the Sassoons remained, in their own way, Jewish immigrants in a British society that still maintained prejudices toward foreigners. The Sassoon Dynasty not only accumulated power and wealth, but also left an indelible mark on the world of art and culture. In his imposing London mansion, Albert Sassoon housed one of the most impressive collections of Oriental art of his time, composed of exquisite pieces imported from India, China, and Japan. Each object was a testament to the family's aesthetic and commercial dominance over Asia, and at the same time, a symbol of the social prestige they enjoyed in Europe. His house was not just a residence, but a theatrical stage where Western luxury fused with Eastern cultural richness, demonstrating to the world his to navigate between empires and civilizations with elegance and a dash of opportunism. During the 20th century, the Sassoon legacy underwent profound transformations. As the Asian nationalist movement gained momentum, challenging colonial power structures, the family adapted its strategies to remain relevant in a changing world. They began to diversify their investments, gradually moving away from the opium industry that had been their initial pillar. Seeking new sources of wealth, they ventured into sectors such as real estate, finance, and banking. The Asian real estate market, especially in Shanghai and Hong Kong, became a new field of expansion for the dynasty, allowing them to consolidate themselves in the modern era while distancing themselves from their dark colonial past. Victor Sassoon, one of the most notable descendants, transformed the family fortune by investing in China in the 1920s, building the famous Cathay Hotel in Shanghai, which emblematically represented the family's ambition, an attempt to transform themselves from colonial merchants into builders of a new identity. However, this shift did not prevent the family from continuing to be scrutinized for its role in the colonial system and the roots of its fortune. Ultimately, the Sassoon dynasty represents the paradox of modernity, the building of a vast fortune through the ruthless exploitation of Asia, while the family's Jewish traditions, once meant by justice and charity, became intertwined with an empire founded on oppression. Today, while monuments to their power still persist in Asian cities, the Sassoons have been subject to critical scrutiny regarding the legacy of their colonial empire. This documentary has unraveled the key elements of the Sassoon family, who established themselves as commercial leaders while also creating suffering. The contrast between the ostentatious luxury of their mansions and the poverty imposed on their colonies raises a series of questions about power, wealth, and moral responsibility that remain relevant today. If this video left you speechless, imagine what's coming next. Like, if you enjoyed the trip, comment on what impressed you most, subscribe so you don't miss any stories of luxury and power, and share it with someone who dreams big. We don't just tell stories here, we live them with you. Thanks for being here, and remember, the best in the world is yet to be discovered. See you in the next video.